In March 2011, the Aurora Dream departed Port Canaveral with 350 passengers and crew aboard for a 5-day Caribbean cruise. The ship never made it home. Coast Guard searched 200,000 square miles of ocean and found nothing. No distress signal, no debris, no bodies. Oceanic Ventures told grieving families it was a tragic mystery of the sea, collected $340 million in insurance, and continued operating luxury cruises. For 8 years, 350 families searched empty water while the cruise line posted record profits. Then, in March 2019, a Coast Guard patrol spotted something impossible, frozen between two massive icebergs in the North Atlantic, 340 miles from where the Aurora Dream should have been. Every passenger and crew member was still aboard, perfectly preserved in ice. Along with evidence that would prove the ship didn't vanish by accident, it was deliberately led to its frozen grave by someone who was paid $3 million to make sure no one survived. March 15, 2019. Owen Hartley was under a Honda Civic replacing brake pads when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Bill collectors had been hunting him for months, but something made him wipe the grease off his hands and pick up. "Mr. Hartley? Lieutenant Dale Kirby, United States Coast Guard." Owen's chest went tight. 8 years of searching, and those words still hit like a fist. "We found the Aurora Dream." The wrench slipped from Owen's hand and clattered on concrete. Around him, the shop kept moving, impact guns whining, radio playing, someone yelling about a stripped bolt. But Owen couldn't hear any of it. "Say that again." "The Aurora Dream, located yesterday morning, 340 miles southeast of Newfoundland. The ship is intact, trapped between icebergs. We're mounting a recovery operation." Owen sat down hard on an overturned bucket. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. "My wife, Claire Hartley. Is she—" "I can't discuss specifics over the phone, but there are bodies aboard. We're beginning identification. I'm calling because you've filed requests every month for—" Papers rustled. 96 consecutive months? 8 years. Owen had called the Coast Guard every 30 days, asking if they'd found anything. Usually got transferred 3 times before reaching someone who'd tell him no. "Nothing new. Sorry for your loss." "I need to be there. When can I—" "Mr. Hartley, this is an active recovery site. Restricted access. We can't accommodate—" "My wife is on that ship." "I understand, but we have 350 families already filing requests. We can't let everyone—" "Lieutenant," Owen's voice went flat. He'd learned this tone-fighting bureaucracy for 8 years. "I've spent $127,000 on private searches, hired marine salvage experts, interviewed every dock worker between Miami and Montego Bay. I know more about the Aurora Dream's last voyage than anyone in your office. So I'm going to be there when you bring my wife home. Only question is whether I'm doing it with your cooperation or by chartering a boat and forcing you to arrest me." Silence. Then, "Where are you located?" "Cincinnati. Flight to St. John's tomorrow at 6 a.m. I'll add your name to the liaison clearance list. Report to Coast Guard Station when you arrive, but I can't promise ship access. That's above my authority." "I'll be there." Owen hung up, stared at the phone in his grease-stained hands. After 8 years of ghost ships and false sightings, they'd actually found her. Claire was coming home. Owen left work without explanation. 4th job he'd lost since Claire died. His apartment was the same disaster it had been for 8 years. Maps covering walls, string connecting coordinates, printouts scattered everywhere. Emma called it his serial killer room the one time she'd visited, then refused to come back. Emma. He checked his watch. 3:30 p.m. She'd be getting out of school. He should call first, but the thought of explaining over the phone made his throat close up. He drove to Lakeside High instead, waited in the parent pickup lane like a normal father, which he hadn't been in 8 years. When Emma emerged, she didn't recognize his car at first. "Em." She stopped, turned. 15 now, looked exactly like Claire. Same dark hair, same sharp jawline. 3 expressions crossed her face in 2 seconds: surprise, irritation, concern. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Get in. Need to talk." "I'm supposed to catch the bus to Aunt Rachel's." "Emma, please." Something in his voice made her stop. She got in, dumped her backpack. "What's wrong? Lose another job?" "Coast Guard called. They found the ship." Emma went still. The ship. The Aurora Dream, frozen between icebergs off Newfoundland. They're bringing everyone home. "Mom," Emma whispered. They sat in the emptying parking lot. Emma picked at her backpack strap. "What if I don't recognize her? She's been frozen 8 years. What if my brain sees a stranger?" Owen thought about the last photo. Easter 2011, 2 weeks before Claire left. Smiling in their backyard, holding 6-year-old Emma, sunlight in her dark hair. She'd been 38. Owen was 48 now. "She'll look the same as when she left. That's how freezing works." "That's not what I mean." Owen didn't have an answer. He'd spent 8 years searching while his daughter forgot her mother's face. "I'm coming with you," Emma said. "She's my mom. I was 5 when she left. If they found her, I'm coming." "Okay," Owen said. "We'll go together." Rachel Brennan, Claire's sister, answered the door in scrubs, saw them on the porch, and immediately knew. "They found the ship," Emma said. "Coast Guard found the Aurora Dream." Rachel's hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God, where?" "Frozen off Newfoundland. I'm taking Emma tomorrow." "I'm going," Emma added. "It's Mom." Rachel looked between them, her nurse brain probably running through why this was terrible, taking a 15-year-old to identify her frozen mother, but Rachel just nodded. "I'll help Em pack. When's your flight?" 6 a.m. "I'll drive you." She stepped aside. "Emma, pack warm clothes. Newfoundland in March is brutal. Owen, sit before you fall down." The house smelled like normalcy, dinner cooking, laundry detergent. Everything Owen's apartment wasn't. Rachel made coffee while Emma disappeared upstairs. 8 years, Rachel said quietly. "Didn't think they'd ever find it." "Me either." "Are you ready? Searching is different than finding. Searching, you've got hope. Finding her frozen means accepting she's really gone." "I've known she was gone since 2011. "Have you?" Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. "You've spent 8 years acting like she's walking through the door any minute. Didn't sell the house, didn't remarry, turned your life into a shrine." "I was looking for answers." "You were avoiding grief. Now you're about to get those answers, whether you're ready or not." Owen thought about Claire frozen between icebergs. 8 years trapped in ice. "No," he admitted. "I'm not prepared, but I'm going anyway." That night, Owen couldn't sleep. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, mind racing through 8 years of dead ends. The ship spotted near Nassau that turned out to be a freighter. The sonar anomaly off Key West that was just a reef. The drunk fisherman in Grand Cayman who swore he'd seen a white cruise ship with no lights. Took Owen's $500, then admitted he'd been hallucinating. Every theory Owen had chased, pirates, navigation error into Bermuda Triangle, rogue wave, mutiny, and scuttling, fire-forcing evacuation into lifeboats lost at sea. Never once had he considered the ship sailed north into ice. The Aurora Dream's route was Caribbean, warm water, sunshine, 5 days of paradise. Why would she end up 340 miles off Newfoundland, unless someone steered her there deliberately? His phone buzzed. Text from Emma. "Can't sleep either." He texted back, "Me neither. Do you think it hurt?" When she froze? Owen stared at the message. Wanted to lie, say freezing was painless. But he'd spent 8 years researching maritime disasters and knew the truth. Hypothermia was agony. "I don't know," he typed. "But she's not hurting now." "How do you know?" "Because we're bringing her home." Emma didn't respond. Owen lay in the dark thinking about Claire's last moments. Had she known the ship was in danger? Had she tried to call him? Had she thought about Emma? His phone buzzed again. "Dad?" "Yeah, I'm scared me too, but we're doing this together, right?" Owen felt his throat tighten. For 8 years he'd done this alone, pushed everyone away. Emma was giving him a second chance. "Together," he confirmed. At 4 a.m., Owen gave up on sleep. Shower, coffee, checked his bag 3 times. Passport, credit cards, printouts of every document related to Claire's disappearance. 8 years of research condensed into a 3-inch binder. Rachel's car pulled up at 4:45. Emma climbed out looking exhausted. They drove to the airport in silence, Emma dozing against the window while streetlights strobed across her face. At departures, Rachel hugged them both. "Call me when you land. And Owen, don't do anything stupid up there. Emma needs you functional." "I'll be fine." "You're never fine, but try anyway." The flight to St. John's took 6 hours. Emma slept most of it, head against Owen's shoulder. He couldn't sleep, kept thinking about Lieutenant Kirby's careful voice saying there are bodies aboard. 350 people, all waiting 8 years to be found. When they landed, it was 3 p.m. local time and freezing. Wind cut through Owen's jacket the second they stepped outside. Emma pulled her hood up, shivering. "Jesus, it's cold." "Ship's another 100 miles north. It'll be colder." Coast Guard Station was modern brick on the waterfront, Canadian and American flags whipping in the wind. Reception directed them to 3rd floor, Family Services Division. Lieutenant Dale Kirby was younger than Owen expected, maybe 35, clean uniform, exhausted eyes. His office was cramped with filing cabinets and maritime charts. He stood when they entered. "Mr. Hartley, thank you for coming." He noticed Emma. "This is my daughter, Emma, Claire's daughter." Kirby nodded. "Please sit. I know you have questions." "When can I see the ship?" "That's complicated. The Aurora Dream is currently a crime scene and mass casualty site. We have forensic teams, investigators, maritime lawyers, all fighting for access. I can't authorize civilian boarding." "I'm not a civilian. I'm a family member." "You're one of 350 family members, Mr. Hartley. If I let you aboard, I have to let everyone. The ship can't handle that kind of traffic." Emma leaned forward. "Is my mom on the ship?" Kirby's expression softened. "We believe everyone who was aboard is still there. Frozen. We're beginning identification now, but it's going to take time." "How much time?" Owen demanded. "Months, maybe longer. We have to thaw each body carefully, document everything, match dental records and DNA. This is the largest mass casualty recovery in North Atlantic history. Coast Guard, FBI, Canadian authorities, maritime investigators, everyone wants access." "FBI?" Owen interrupted. "Why FBI?" Kirby hesitated, glanced at the closed door. "Because there's evidence this wasn't an accident." Owen's blood went cold. "What kind of evidence?" "I can't discuss an active investigation." "Lieutenant, I've spent 8 years and $127,000 looking for answers. You're going to tell me what you found." Kirby studied Owen for a long moment. Then he pulled a file from his desk drawer, opened it. Inside were photographs. The Aurora Dream trapped between massive blue-green icebergs, white hull scarred with ice, windows dark and empty. "Ship's navigation was manually overridden," Kirby said quietly. "Someone steered her 340 miles off course. Radio equipment was deliberately destroyed. Lifeboats were sabotaged, release mechanisms damaged so they couldn't be deployed. Whoever did this wanted to make sure no one survived." Emma made a small noise. Owen reached for her hand. "You're telling me someone murdered 350 people?" "I'm telling you the FBI is treating this as a criminal investigation. That's all I can say." Owen stared at the photographs. The ship that had haunted him for 8 years finally found. And it was worse than he'd imagined. Not an accident, not a tragedy of the sea. Murder. "I need to see it," Owen said. "I need to see where my wife died." "Mr. Hartley, the identification process takes time. We'll notify you when—" "No, I'm not waiting months for bureaucracy while my wife sits in ice. Find a way to get me on that ship, Lieutenant, or I'll find my own way." Something passed between them, both men who understood obsession, who knew that rules sometimes mattered less than closure. "I'll see what I can do," Kirby said finally. "But I can't promise anything. And if I do get you access, it's going to be limited. A few hours at most. You won't be able to remove anything or disturb evidence. I just need to see her. Then give me 48 hours. I'll talk to the investigation coordinator. Kirby stood, handed over a folder. There's a hotel 2 blocks from here, Harbor Inn. Most of the families are staying there. You might want to connect with them, share information. In the parking lot, Emma stopped. Dad, someone killed Mom? We don't know that yet. FBI is investigating. The lieutenant said the ship was steered off course. That's murder. Owen didn't have an answer for that. For 8 years, he'd imagined Claire dying in a storm, in a sinking, in some nautical disaster that was tragic but explainable. The idea that someone had deliberately killed her, killed all of them, made the grief fresh and raw again. Let's get to the hotel, he said. We'll figure this out. But Emma wasn't done. If someone murdered Mom, we're going to find out who, right? Owen looked at his daughter, 15 years old, Claire's dark eyes, asking for justice. Yeah, he said. We're going to find out who. Harbor Inn was exactly what Owen expected. Cheap rooms, fluorescent lights flickering in the hallway, coffee maker in the lobby that looked decades old. Emma claimed the bed near the window. Owen dropped his bag and checked his phone. Text from Rachel. Safe flight? He typed back. Yeah? Might be here a while? Emma texted her aunt separately. Owen saw her typing fast, probably explaining everything he'd left out. I'm going downstairs, Owen said. See if any other families are around. You hungry? Not really. Try to rest. We don't know when Kirby's going to call. Downstairs in the lobby, other families clustered in small groups. Owen recognized the look, exhausted hope mixed with dread. 8 years of waiting finally over, but the answers might be worse than the mystery. A woman in her 60s approached. Your family? My wife was on the ship. My brother, crew member. She held out her hand. Beth Renner. Owen Hartley. Beth gestured to a corner table where papers were spread out. Some of us have been sharing information. Freedom of information requests, legal filings. You should know. The company's fighting everything. Oceanic Ventures collected $340 million in insurance after the ship disappeared. Now they're trying to block family access to evidence. Owen sat down. The papers showed what Beth described: insurance payout documents, legal motions, corporate stonewalling. Oceanic Ventures was still operating luxury cruises, still advertising the legendary Aurora Dream as part of their company history. They made money off this, Owen said quietly. $340 million. Beth's voice was bitter. Built 2 new ships with that money. Meanwhile, our family's got nothing. Standard maritime liability, $250,000 per passenger. My brother was crew, so his death benefit was $75,000. 28 years of service was worth $75,000 to them. A younger man joined them, maybe 40. Tired suit, loose tie. Beth, pulling in more recruits? Owen Hartley, meet Martin Ross. His parents were passengers. He's been fighting the company for 8 years. Martin shook Owen's hand. Company lawyers here. Gloria Chen. Staying in the same hotel? Can you believe that? Filing motions to restrict our access while sleeping 30 feet away from grieving families. Why would they restrict access? Owen asked. Ship was found. It's over. Because they know something, Beth said. FBI told me the same thing they probably told you. Navigation sabotaged, radios destroyed, lifeboats damaged. Someone on that ship was paid to kill everyone aboard, and I'm guessing the company knows who. Owen felt something cold settle in his chest. You think the company was involved? I think they collected $340 million for a ship that was losing money, Martin said. I think they've spent 8 years fighting every investigation, and I think they're scared of what we're going to find on that frozen ship. Beth pulled out more documents. Look at this. Aurora Dream was hemorrhaging money, maintenance issues, fuel costs, old infrastructure. Company tried selling her twice, no buyers. Then 6 months before she disappeared, they took out a massive insurance policy. Specific coverage for catastrophic loss at sea. That's standard for cruise ships, Owen said. $340 million isn't standard. That's triple what the ship was worth. Beth tapped the document. They insured her like they knew she was going to disappear. Martin added, and when she did disappear, the company waited 36 hours before reporting it to Coast Guard. Told them probable equipment failure, ship will check in soon. By the time search began, any survivors would have been dead from exposure. Owen stared at the papers. Insurance policy dated September 2010. Ship disappeared March 2011. The company had insured the Aurora Dream for an insane amount just months before she vanished. You're saying they planned this? I'm saying someone did, Beth said. Whether it was the company or someone they hired, I don't know. But that ship was worth more dead than alive, and 350 people died so someone could collect. Owen's hands were shaking again, not from fear this time, from rage. Someone had murdered Claire, and the company that was supposed to protect her had profited from her death. We need proof, he said. That's why we need access to the ship. Martin's jaw tightened. Everything we need is frozen on that ship. Logs, communications, evidence of who was really controlling her, but the company's fighting to keep us away from it. Kirby said he'd try to get me access, Owen said. 48 hours. Beth and Martin exchanged looks. If you get on that ship, Beth said quietly, you look for anything that doesn't make sense. Crew manifest, passenger logs, maintenance records, anything that shows who knew this was going to happen. Owen nodded. His chest felt tight. For 8 years he'd been searching for Claire, hoping for answers, hoping for closure. Now he was searching for a murderer. 48 hours turned into 3 days. Owen and Emma stayed at the Harbor Inn, waiting for Kirby's call. The other families shared information, theories, rage. Beth had boxes of documents, 8 years of fighting Oceanic Ventures. Martin had recorded every conversation with company lawyers. Everyone had their piece of the puzzle. Owen learned about the other victims. Captain Roland Voss, 52, 28 years at sea. Chief Engineer Nina Torres, 44, mother of 2. Hundreds of passengers, retirees on vacation, families on spring break, corporate teams on business conferences, and Claire, ER nurse, 38 years old, on a 5-day cruise because the hospital gave her a gift certificate for hitting 10 years of service. On the 3rd night, Kirby called. Mr. Hartley, I got you 4 hours tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. departure. You, your daughter, and 2 other family representatives. Beth Renner and Martin Ross requested to join you. 4 hours? Investigation team needs the ship by noon. Take it or leave it. We'll take it. The boat that took them out was Coast Guard, 40 feet, built for ice water. Owen, Emma, Beth, and Martin stood on deck wrapped in thick coats while the captain navigated through scattered ice floes. The air was so cold it hurt to breathe. There, the captain said, pointing. Owen saw it. 2 massive icebergs, blue-green walls rising from black water, and between them, trapped like an insect in amber, the Aurora Dream. She was bigger than Owen had imagined. White hull streaked with rust and ice, multiple decks stacked high, water slides frozen mid-curve. She sat tilted slightly to port, wedged so tight between the bergs that she couldn't move even an inch. Emma gripped the railing. That's where Mom is. Yeah, Owen said. That's where she is. The captain brought them alongside. A Coast Guard team had already secured boarding ladders, aluminum platforms extending from the boat to the ship's lowest accessible deck. Ice made everything slippery, treacherous. 4 hours, the captain reminded them. Don't touch evidence markers. Don't remove anything. Forensic team finds out you contaminated the scene, you'll never get access again. They climbed aboard. The deck was solid ice, ropes and equipment frozen in place exactly as they'd been 8 years ago. A beach towel lay stiff as cardboard near a deck chair. Someone's sunglasses, lens cracked, frozen to the railing. Ship lost power, Beth said quietly. Temperatures dropped. Everyone froze where they were. Owen checked the diagram Kirby had given him. Claire's cabin was Deck 7, Cabin 412, passenger accommodations, starboard side. They moved through the ship in silence. Emergency lighting flickered. Coast Guard had rigged temporary power to some sections. Most of the ship was dark, lit only by their flashlights. Bodies were visible through frosted windows. A man slumped in a hallway. A woman collapsed near a stairwell, hand outstretched like she'd been reaching for something. The ship was a tomb, perfectly preserved. Beth stopped at Deck 5. "My brother's quarters were here. Engineering crew." "Take your time," Owen said. "We'll meet back here in 3 hours." Beth nodded, disappeared down a corridor with her flashlight. Martin headed toward the bridge. "I want to see the navigation equipment, see what they destroyed." Owen and Emma climbed to Deck 7. The passenger corridor was narrow, cabin doors on both sides. 407, 409, 411, 412. The door was frozen shut. Owen put his shoulder into it, heard ice crack, felt the door give. It swung open with a groan. Claire's cabin. The room was small, single bed, desk, bathroom. Suitcase half unpacked on the luggage rack. Clothes laid out on the bed like she'd been deciding what to wear to dinner. Her reading glasses on the nightstand. Her laptop on the desk, screen dark. Emma stood in the doorway, not moving. "You okay?" Owen asked. "It's like she just left for a minute, like she's coming back." Owen saw it too. The cabin wasn't destroyed or ransacked. It was just waiting. Claire had left for breakfast or a morning walk, planning to come back and finish unpacking. She never made it back. On the nightstand, under the reading glasses, Owen found it. Claire's journal. Small, leather-bound notebook, pages stiff with cold, but readable. He opened it carefully. Claire's handwriting, neat, precise, the same handwriting that had filled birthday cards and grocery lists and notes in Emma's lunchbox. First entries were exactly what he'd expect. March 11th, 2011. First day. Ship is gorgeous. My cabin is tiny, but has an ocean view. Missing Owen and Emma already. Conference starts tomorrow. Hospital sent me to learn about new triage protocols. Hoping to skip some sessions and actually enjoy the sun. March 12th. Conference is boring as expected. Spent lunch by the pool instead. Met nice couple from Boston, Dave and Linda, celebrating their anniversary. Food is amazing. I'm going to gain 10 pounds. March 13th. Something weird happened today. Was getting coffee in the crew area, they have better machines than passenger deck, and saw one of the crew members acting strange. Young guy, communications officer, I think. Name tag said Keith. He was looking at everyone like, I don't know, nervous? Like he was checking if people noticed him. Probably nothing. Owen felt his pulse quicken. Keith, communications officer, the person who would have access to ship radios. He kept reading. March 14th. Saw that Keith guy again. He was in the bridge earlier, heard him arguing with the captain about something. Couldn't hear what. Captain looked angry. Keith looked scared. This is probably stupid, but it felt wrong. The way he was watching everyone, the way he kept checking his watch like he was waiting for something. March 15th. Final entry. I'm probably being paranoid, but something's wrong. We should have turned south 6 hours ago. I asked one of the servers at dinner, and he said the ship's been off course since morning. Nobody's talking about it, but I can see crew members arguing. That Keith guy hasn't been seen all day. Owen, if you ever read this, I love you. Tell Emma her mom was thinking about her dance recital. Tell her. The entry ended there. Middle of a sentence. Like Claire had been interrupted. Owen closed the journal carefully. His hands were shaking. Claire had noticed. She'd seen Keith acting suspicious. She'd known something was wrong hours before the ship trapped. Dad? Emma's voice was small. What does it say? Your mom knew, Owen said. She figured out something was wrong. She was trying to warn people. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Was she scared? Owen looked at the last entry. Tell Emma her mom was thinking about her dance recital. Even in those final hours, Claire had been thinking about her daughter. No, he said. She was thinking about you. Owen took the journal, technically removing evidence, but he didn't care. This was Claire's voice, her last thoughts. He wasn't leaving it on this frozen ship. They searched the rest of the cabin, Claire's clothes, her toiletries, her conference materials. Nothing else that mattered. Her phone was dead, frozen in the desk drawer. Her laptop wouldn't power on. In the bathroom, Owen found Claire's wedding ring on the sink. She'd taken it off to shower. He picked it up, cold metal burning his palm. "She's not here," Emma said from the doorway. "What?" "Mom's body. She's not in the cabin. Where is she?" Owen realized Emma was right. They'd seen bodies throughout the ship, but Claire wasn't in her cabin. She'd left at some point and never made it back. "Kirby said they're still cataloging locations," Owen said. "We'll find her." But dread was settling in his stomach. Claire had noticed Keith. She'd known something was wrong. Had she tried to do something about it? They left the cabin, continued through Deck 7. More passenger cabins, all frozen in time. Some had bodies visible through windows, passengers who'd gone back to their rooms when the cold hit. But most cabins were empty. "Where is everyone?" Emma asked. Owen checked his diagram. Probably gathered in common areas when they realized something was wrong. Crew would have directed them to assembly points. They found the main passenger corridor. Bodies here, dozens of them, collapsed in the hallway, frozen mid-step. Passengers who'd been trying to evacuate, trying to reach lifeboats, trying to get somewhere warm. Emma grabbed Owen's arm. "I can't. This is too much. Look at me, not at them, just at me." Emma focused on her father's face, breathing hard. "We don't have to keep going," Owen said. "We can go back." "No." Emma shook her head. "We have to find Mom. We have to know what happened to her." They kept moving, stepping carefully around the bodies. Owen tried not to look at faces, tried not to imagine their last moments. At the end of the corridor, they found a stairwell leading down. And at the bottom of the stairs, frozen in the metal framework, they found something that made Owen stop cold. Blood, frozen dark red, splattered on the wall. Not a lot, just a spray pattern, like someone had hit something hard, or like someone had been hit. "Dad?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Owen followed the blood trail. It led down the corridor toward the ship's communications room. And that's when he understood. Claire hadn't just noticed Keith acting strange. She'd followed him. She'd tried to stop whatever he was doing. "Come on," Owen said. "We need to find Beth and Martin, right now." Owen and Emma found Beth on Deck 5, standing outside a cabin marked Engineering and Torres. Beth's face was wet with tears. "My brother," she said. "He's in there, frozen at his desk. He was writing something when it happened." "Beth, we need to go to the communications room," Owen said. "I found evidence in Claire's journal. She saw something. There's blood near the comm corridor." Beth wiped her eyes. "Martin's already at the bridge. Said he found something in the navigation logs." They climbed to the bridge together. The command center was mostly glass and metal, instrument panels dark except where Coast Guard had rigged emergency lighting. Charts were spread across tables. Frozen coffee cups sat on consoles. And at the helm, frozen with one hand still on the wheel, was Captain Roland Voss. Martin stood next to the captain's body, reading from a leather-bound logbook. "Owen, you need to hear this." The captain's log was open on the navigation desk, pages stiff with cold. Martin read the final entries aloud. March 15th, 2011, 1800 hours. Course deviation detected. Navigation system showing coordinates 400 miles from plotted route. Officer Walden claims equipment malfunction. Running manual calculations to verify. Something feels wrong. 2,100 hours. Ice warnings ignored by automated systems. Walden says he's working on the problem. Asked him to show me his work. He became defensive. Said he knows what he's doing. I don't trust it. Running independent position check. 2,330 hours. We're surrounded by ice. Tried to radio Coast Guard for assistance. Communications equipment non-responsive. Walden nowhere to be found. Sent Torres to check radio room. She hasn't reported back. 0200 hours, March 16th. Ship is trapped. Ice closing in on both sides. Temperatures dropping fast. Finally located Walden in communications room. He was destroying the equipment, physically destroying it with tools. I confronted him. He ran. Have ordered all crew to search for him, but half the systems are down and we're losing power. Passengers are panicking. I don't understand what's happening. Why would our communications officer sabotage the ship? 0400 hours. Power failing throughout ship. Backup generators compromised. Torres found fuel lines cut in engine room. This wasn't an accident. Someone planned this. Walden has to be working for someone. Tried to deploy lifeboats, but release mechanisms won't engage. They've been damaged. We're trapped here. I've failed my ship. I've failed 350 people. If anyone finds this log, look for Keith Walden. Find out who paid him. Find out why. The entry ended there. Captain Voss had written his final words, then frozen at his post trying to save a ship that was already doomed. Martin closed the log carefully. The captain knew. He figured it out hours before everyone froze. Keith Walden, Owen said. Communications officer. Claire noticed him acting suspicious. She wrote about it in her journal. He was checking if people were watching him. He knew what he was doing. Beth's voice was hoarse. My brother found sabotaged fuel lines. The captain found destroyed radios. Claire saw Walden acting strange. They all figured it out too late. Where's Walden now? Emma asked. Good question, Martin said. Dead like everyone else? Or did he escape? Owen thought about the blood trail near communications. Claire's journal cuts off mid-sentence. She wasn't in her cabin when she froze. I found blood near the comm corridor. You think she went after him? Beth asked. I think she figured out something was wrong and tried to help. Let's check the communications room. They left the bridge, descended to Deck 4, where ship operations were centralized. The corridor Owen had found earlier was just ahead, the one with frozen blood on the wall. The communications room door was partially open. Inside, the space looked like a war zone. Equipment smashed, wires cut, circuit boards destroyed. Someone had taken a hammer or crowbar to every piece of radio equipment, every satellite uplink, every emergency beacon. And on the floor, frozen in a corner behind a destroyed console, they found Keith Walden. He was young, maybe 35, dark hair, crew uniform. His body was curled into a ball like he'd been trying to hide. His hands were frozen to his chest, clutching something. Martin knelt carefully, trying not to disturb the body. He died here, hiding in the equipment closet. Owen saw what Keith was holding, a waterproof pouch, the kind designed to protect documents from water damage. He's got something. We can't remove it, Beth said. Evidence protocol. Screw protocol. Owen reached down, carefully pried the pouch from Keith's frozen fingers. The body was rigid as stone. Inside the pouch were documents. Owen spread them on a desk that wasn't covered in broken equipment. Bank statements. Offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Deposits totaling $2.8 million spread over 6 months. September 2010 through February 2011. A payment schedule on Oceanic Ventures letterhead. Initial payment, $500,000, September 2010. Equipment access granted, $800,000, November 2010. Final deployment, $1,500,000, March 2011. Completion bonus, $3 million, on confirmation of total loss. A handwritten note, not Keith's writing. Full payment on confirmation of total loss. No survivors, no evidence. Make it look like navigation failure or environmental disaster. You have 2 hours after ice closure to extract via predetermined coordinates. Helicopter will not wait. Jesus Christ, Martin whispered. They paid him $3 million to kill everyone on this ship. Beth was shaking. The company, Oceanic Ventures, their letterhead, they paid for this. Owen kept searching the pouch. False identity documents, 5 different passports, all with Keith's photo, but different names. David Morrison, Kevin Walsh, Keith Walden, multiple Social Security cards, driver's licenses from 3 different states, and receipts, printed emails showing meetings in Miami with someone named D. Stratton, VP Operations, Oceanic Ventures. Emma's voice cut through the silence. Dad, why is he still here? The note says helicopter extraction. Why didn't he leave? Owen looked at the body, at the destroyed equipment around them, at the ship tilted and frozen between icebergs. "Because the ice closed faster than they expected," he said. "Look at the timeline. Captain's log says they were trapped by 0200 hours. Keith was supposed to destroy the equipment and get extracted within 2 hours, but the ship was already locked in ice. The helicopter couldn't land. He was trapped here with everyone else." "He died with his victims," Beth said quietly. "After murdering 350 people for money, he froze just like them." Martin was photographing everything with his phone. "This is evidence, direct proof the company hired someone to sink the ship. The FBI needs to see this." Owen's hands were shaking as he held the payment schedule. Someone at Oceanic Ventures, someone with access to company letterhead and corporate accounts, had hired Keith Walden to murder everyone aboard the Aurora Dream. They'd planned it for months. They'd paid him in installments, like he was a contractor renovating a house, not a killer destroying a ship. And Claire had noticed. She'd seen Keith acting nervous, checking his watch, watching people. She'd known something was wrong. "The blood," Emma said suddenly. "In the corridor. Where's Mom?" Owen had been so focused on Keith's body and the documents that he'd forgotten. Claire wasn't here. She'd left her cabin. She'd noticed something wrong. She'd written in her journal about Keith. Where had she gone? "There's another corridor," Beth said, pointing to a doorway past the destroyed radio equipment. "Crew access, leads to engineering and passenger services." They moved through the doorway. The corridor beyond was narrow, lit only by their flashlights. And there, 20 feet from the communications room, they found her. Nina Torres, Beth's brother. Frozen in the corridor, collapsed against the wall. She'd been carrying maintenance logs. They were scattered around her, pages frozen to the floor. Beth made a sound like she'd been hit. Owen knelt beside Nina's body while Beth gripped the wall, unable to look. Nina's logs were still readable. Owen picked up the pages carefully. March 14th. Fuel consumption abnormally high. Checked lines. Someone accessed fuel controls without authorization. Keith Walden logged into system. Why would communications officer need fuel access? March 15th, 0900 hours. GPS recalibration required. Keith volunteered to handle it. Took 6 hours. Should take 30 minutes. I ran diagnostics after he left. He changed our course coordinates. Ship thinks we're 300 miles south of actual position. Going to Captain immediately. 1200 hours. Captain Voss investigating. Keith locked me out of communications room. Says he's fixing a problem. I know equipment access codes. Going to override and see what he's doing. 1400 hours. Backup navigation system offline. I ordered replacement parts last week. No order exists in system. Keith deleted it. He's been sabotaging us for weeks. Captain needs to know. Final entry. Keith destroyed the radios. I saw him. He saw me. I'm going to warn Captain Voss. If I don't make it, someone needs to know. Keith Walden isn't his real name. I saw his ID card fall out when he... The entry ended there. Nina had been running to warn the captain when the temperature dropped and she froze. "She figured it out," Owen said. "Your brother documented everything Keith did. She knew he was using a false name. She was trying to stop him." Beth was crying openly now. "That's who Nina was. She saw something wrong and she couldn't walk away." "Neither could Claire," Emma said softly. "Mom was the same way." Owen stood. His chest felt tight. Nina had died trying to warn the captain. Captain Voss had died trying to save the ship. Keith had died hiding like a coward with his blood money. But where was Claire? "There's more corridor," Martin said, gesturing ahead. "Passenger services. Medical bay? Where would Claire have gone?" Owen thought about his wife. ER nurse. Someone who ran toward emergencies, not away from them. Someone who saw people in trouble and had to help. "Medical bay," he said. "She would have gone where people needed help." They kept moving, past Nina's body, past the blood spatter Owen had seen earlier, following the corridor as it curved toward the ship's medical center. And there, outside the medical bay door, frozen against the wall, with one hand reaching for the handle, they found Claire. Emma saw her first. "Mom!" The word came out barely a whisper. Owen turned, followed Emma's gaze, and there she was. Claire Hartley. Frozen against the medical bay wall, one hand reaching for the door handle, the other clutching a walkie-talkie. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, casual clothes, not the business outfit she'd packed for the conference. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her eyes were closed. She looked exactly like she had 8 years ago. Frozen at 38, while Owen had aged to 48. Emma took a step forward, then stopped. "I can't." "It's okay," Owen said, but his own legs wouldn't move either. Beth put a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Take your time, both of you." Owen forced himself forward. Each step felt like walking through concrete. When he reached Claire, he saw details that broke him. Wedding ring back on her finger. She'd gone back to the cabin and put it on. Small cut on her forehead, dried blood frozen dark. Radio clutched in her hand like she'd been trying to call for help. "She was running," Martin said quietly, examining the corridor. "See the way she's positioned? She was moving fast, hit the wall when she froze." Owen knelt beside his wife's body. Up close, he could see frost on her eyelashes, ice crystals in her hair. The cold had taken her mid-stride, trying to reach the medical bay where she could help. "She never stopped being a nurse," Owen said. "Ship was dying, and she ran toward people who needed help." Emma finally moved closer. She knelt on Claire's other side, reached out, but didn't touch. "I don't remember her voice anymore. I try, but I can't hear it." "She had this laugh," Owen said. "When something really got her, she'd snort a little and then get embarrassed about it. You used to make her laugh on purpose just to hear the snort." "I don't remember." "You were 5. It's okay not to remember." They sat with Claire for a long time. Beth and Martin gave them space, moved down the corridor to give the family privacy. Finally, Owen stood. He couldn't take Claire with him. She was evidence. She belonged to the investigation now. But he could document what happened to her. He could find out why she was here instead of in her cabin, where she might have survived longer. The medical bay door was frozen shut. Owen shouldered it open, ice cracking like gunshots. Inside, the medical center was small. 2 examination rooms, a supply closet, a desk for the ship's doctor. And behind the desk, frozen in his chair, was the doctor himself. Name tag read, Dr. Leo Brennan, ship's physician. On the desk in front of him was an open journal. Not a medical log, a personal diary. The page was dated March 15, 2011. Owen read it aloud for Emma to hear. "Something's wrong with Keith Walden. I'm sure of it now. I've seen him around the ship for 2 months, and something about him always felt off. Today I figured out why. This morning he dropped his wallet in the crew mess. I picked it up to give it back. His ID card slipped out. The name printed on the ID wasn't Keith Walden. It was something else. I couldn't read it clearly before he snatched it away, but it definitely wasn't the same name. I asked him about it. He got defensive, said it was his brother's card, he'd grabbed the wrong wallet, but the photo on the card was him. Same face, different name. I checked the crew manifest. Keith Walden was hired 2 months before this voyage. Background check shows he worked for 3 other cruise lines, but when I called those companies, pretending to verify his employment, none of them had any record of him. He's using a false identity. I'm going to report this to Captain Voss as soon as my shift ends. Something is very wrong here. The entry ended there. Leo had figured out Keith was using a fake name, same as Nina Torres had discovered, but Leo had written it in his personal journal instead of going straight to the captain. Had he been planning to gather more evidence first? Or had Keith found out he knew? Owen kept searching the medical bay, supply cabinets frozen shut, examination tables empty. In the second exam room, he found something that made his heart stop. A radio dispatch log, printed time-stamped messages from the ship's emergency communication system. March 15th, 22:30 hours. Claire Hartley, passenger cabin 412 to medical. Dr. Brennan, something's wrong with the ship. I'm an ER nurse. If you need help, I'm available. 2,240 hours. Dr. Brennan to Claire Hartley. Thank you. Please stay in your cabin for now. Captain is investigating. March 16th, 0015 hours. Nina Torres, engineering to medical. Leo, I found evidence of sabotage. Communications officer Keith Walton has destroyed radio equipment. Captain is trying to contain situation. We may need to prepare for emergency evacuation. 0030 hours. Dr. Brennan to Nina Torres. Understood. Standing by. 0145 hours. Claire Hartley to medical. Dr. Brennan, I saw someone in the crew corridor destroying equipment. Male, 30s, dark hair, crew uniform. I tried to stop him. He pushed me. I'm okay, but I think he's dangerous. Where are you? 0150 hours. Dr. Brennan to Claire Hartley. Stay away from crew areas. Man you saw is Keith Walton. He's sabotaging the ship. Captain has crew searching for him. Please return to your cabin. 0100 hours. Claire Hartley to medical. I can't get back to my cabin. Corridor is blocked by panicking passengers. Temperature is dropping fast. People are getting hypothermic. I'm coming to medical to help. I'm a trauma nurse. You're going to need me. 0215 hours. Dr. Brennan to Claire Hartley. Medical Bay, Deck 4. Hurry. No more messages after that. The system had gone dead at 0215 hours, right when power failed. Owen stared at the timestamps. Claire had seen Keith destroying equipment. She'd tried to stop him. That explained the cut on her forehead, the blood in the corridor. Keith had pushed her, probably tried to kill her, but she'd gotten away. Then, instead of hiding in her cabin, she'd run toward the medical bay to help save people. Dad? Emma was reading over his shoulder. Mom tried to stop the bad guy? Yeah, she figured out he was sabotaging the ship, and she tried to stop him. And when she couldn't, she went to help people anyway. That's who your mom was? Martin appeared in the doorway. Owen, we're running out of time. Captain said 4 hours. We've got maybe 30 minutes before we have to head back. Owen looked around the medical bay one more time. Dr. Leo Brennan frozen at his desk. Claire frozen outside the door, trying to reach him. Both of them trying to save lives, while Keith Walton murdered 350 people for money. We need to take everything, Owen said. Every journal, every log, every piece of evidence. Keith's payment documents, Nina's maintenance logs, Leo's diary, the captain's log, Claire's journal. All of it? That's removing evidence from a crime scene, Beth said. The FBI already has their evidence. They've got Keith's body and the destroyed equipment. We need proof for the families, proof that our people didn't die because of an accident or navigation error, proof that they died fighting. Martin nodded. I've got photos of everything. We take the originals, send copies to FBI and media simultaneously. Company can't bury this if everyone has it. They gathered everything systematically. Owen packed the documents carefully in a waterproof bag Martin had brought. Captain Voss's log, Nina's maintenance records, Leo's diary, the radio dispatch messages, Keith's payment schedule, and false identity papers. Claire's journal, 8 years of mystery, condensed into a bag of frozen papers. Beth knelt beside her brother's body one last time. Nina, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. You're a hero. Owen stood by Claire. He wanted to take her with him, bring her home right now. But the Coast Guard needed to process her body, document everything, do this properly. I'll come back, he told her. I'm bringing you home. I promise. Emma touched her mother's hand gently. Bye, Mom. I remember you now. Dad told me about your laugh. They left the medical bay, left the bodies, left the frozen ship, climbed back to the deck where the Coast Guard boat waited. The captain checked his watch. 32 minutes to spare. Find what you needed? Yeah, Owen said. We found everything. As the boat pulled away from the Aurora Dream, Owen looked back at the ship trapped between icebergs. Claire was still in there. 350 people were still in there. But now he knew the truth. Keith Walton had been paid $3 million to murder everyone aboard. Oceanic Ventures had hired him, given him equipment access, planned the whole thing for insurance money. And Owen had proof. What happens now? Emma asked. Owen held up the waterproof bag. Now we make sure everyone knows what the company did, and we make sure they pay for it. Beth was already on her phone as the boat cut through ice-filled water. I'm calling my lawyer, and the FBI, and every news station I can think of. Good, Martin said. Burn it all down. Owen put his arm around Emma. She leaned into him, exhausted and grieving and angry all at once. Dad? Mom tried to save people. Even when she knew the ship was dying, she ran to help. That's the kind of person she was. I want to be like that. Owen pulled his daughter closer. You already are. The Aurora Dream disappeared behind them, white hull fading into the ice, but the evidence was safe. The truth was coming out. And somewhere, frozen in a ship between icebergs, Claire Hartley was finally going to get justice. Back at Harbor Inn, Owen spread the documents across the hotel room desk while Emma slept. The frozen papers were thawing, ink bleeding slightly, but still readable. He photographed everything with his phone before the documents degraded further. Keith Walden's payment schedule, $2.8 million deposited between September 2010 and March 2011. Final payment of $3 million promised on confirmation of total loss. False identity documents, 5 passports, 3 Social Security cards, driver's licenses from Nevada, Florida, and Maine. Every document had Keith's photo, but a different name, and the handwritten note. Full payment on confirmation of total loss. No survivors. No evidence. Owen's hands shook as he photographed that line. No survivors. They'd planned to kill everyone from the beginning. His phone rang. Beth Renner. Owen, I just got off with my lawyer. He's contacting FBI now. But there's something else. I did some digging on Keith Walden. That's not his real name. We know. Leo's diary said his real name was Dale Morrison, ex-military dishonorable discharge in 2008, court-martialed for theft of military equipment. After discharge, he worked as a maritime security consultant, which is code for mercenary. Companies hired him to do jobs they couldn't do legally. Owen felt cold settle in his stomach. Oceanic Ventures hired a mercenary to sink their ship. Not just that. I found Morrison's ex-wife. She's in Nevada. I called her. Owen, she said a man from Oceanic Ventures came to their house in 2010, offered Dale $3 million for a marine salvage job. She told me Dale laughed when he heard the amount, said it was too much money for salvage work, had to be something illegal. He took it anyway. She knew? She knew it was shady, didn't know it was mass murder. They divorced in 2011, 2 months after the ship disappeared. She's been wondering all these years what job Dale took. Now she knows. Owen stared at the payment documents. Someone at Oceanic Ventures had gone to Dale Morrison's house, had sat in his living room and offered him $3 million to kill 350 people. Who from the company? Owen asked. Who made the offer? Ex-wife didn't get a name, but she remembered the title, Vice President of Operations. She remembered because the guy had business cards that said VP Operations, Oceanic Ventures. VP Operations, the person who would have access to ship systems, crew hiring, operational budgets. The person who could arrange everything Dale Morrison needed to destroy the Aurora Dream. Owen pulled up his laptop, searched Oceanic Ventures' corporate structure, found it within minutes. David Stratton, Vice President of Operations, Oceanic Ventures, hired 2009, still employed. Current role, Senior Vice President of Fleet Management. His bio was corporate sanitized. David brings 15 years of maritime operations experience to Oceanic Ventures. Under his leadership, the company has expanded its fleet and improved operational efficiency. Improved operational efficiency. They'd blown up one failing ship and used the insurance money to build 2 profitable ones. Owen kept searching, found more company financial reports from 2010 showing Aurora Dream losing $2 million per quarter. Maintenance costs skyrocketing. Board meeting minutes discussing options for Aurora Dream asset management. Then in September 2010, the same month Dale Morrison received his first payment, the company had taken out that massive insurance policy, $340 million for catastrophic loss at sea. 3 months later, Dale Morrison was hired as Keith Walden Communications Officer. It was all there. Timeline, money trail, corporate decision-making. They'd planned it for months. Owen's phone buzzed. Text from Martin Ross. Check email. Sending you something. Owen opened his email. Martin had sent scanned documents, more pages found on the ship, stuff the forensic team hadn't processed yet. Corporate communications between David Stratton and someone identified as H. Marks, CFO. Stratton, Aurora Dream, hemorrhaging money. Board wants solutions. Marks. Selling her gets us $80 million at best. Insurance policy gets us $340 million if she's lost at sea. Stratton. You're suggesting what exactly? Marks. I'm suggesting we explore all options. Maritime disasters happen. Ships disappear. Insurance companies pay out. Stratton. This conversation never happened. Marks. What conversation? The emails were dated August 2010, 1 month before Dale Morrison's first payment. Owen felt sick. This wasn't one rogue VP. This was conspiracy at the executive level. CFO Helen Marks and VP David Stratton discussing insurance fraud like it was a quarterly budget adjustment. Another email, this one from Stratton, to an unnamed recipient with only a phone number visible. Need specialist for marine project. Discreet. Experienced with ship systems. Contact attached. Budget approved at $3 million. Timeline, 6 months. Outcome must appear accidental or environmental. No investigation trail. The email was dated September 1st, 2010. 6 days later, Dale Morrison received $500,000 in his Cayman Islands account. Owen called Martin. You found more emails? Coast Guard photographer let me shoot his evidence documentation before they bagged everything. I got photos of Dale Morrison's entire cabin. The guy kept records of everything. Payment receipts, email printouts, meeting notes. He was building an insurance policy of his own. What do you mean? He was documenting everything in case the company tried to screw him. He had proof they hired him, proof they planned it, proof they were the ones who decided to kill everyone aboard. If they didn't pay him the final $3 million, he could have destroyed them. But he died before he could collect. Yeah, trapped in ice with everyone else. Probably tried to use his evidence as leverage to get extracted, but the company couldn't get a helicopter to him, so he died holding proof of their crimes. Owen looked at the documents spread across his desk. Dale Morrison had murdered 350 people, but Oceanic Ventures had hired him, paid him, given him access to ship systems, and then abandoned him to freeze when extraction became impossible. Everyone was guilty, everyone was dead, or should be. Martin, we need to get this to FBI and media simultaneously. If we just give it to FBI, the company will bury it in legal proceedings for years. Already working on it. Beth's lawyer is drafting a press release. We'll drop everything tomorrow morning. FBI, Coast Guard, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN. Every outlet gets the same evidence packet at the same time. The company will deny everything. Let them. We have payment records with their letterhead, emails from their executives, meeting notes showing VP Stratton visited Morrison's house, financial records showing insurance policy timing, Captain Voss's log showing he confronted Morrison, Nina Torres's maintenance records showing systematic sabotage. They can deny all they want. Evidence doesn't lie. Owen hung up, looked at Emma sleeping in the other bed. She'd spent 8 years without her mother, had grown up wondering if Claire was alive somewhere, if she'd abandoned them, if she'd suffered. Now Emma knew the truth. Claire had died fighting, had seen Morrison sabotaging the ship and tried to stop him, had run toward danger to help save people instead of hiding in her cabin. But the people who'd hired Morrison to murder Claire, they were alive, still working, still operating cruise ships, still profiting from mass murder. Owen opened his laptop, started composing an email to every news organization he could think of. Subject: Evidence of corporate mass murder. Aurora Dream disaster attached documents prove Oceanic Ventures executives hired mercenary to sink cruise ship for insurance money. 350 people murdered in conspiracy involving Vice President David Stratton and Chief Financial Officer Helen Marks. He worked through the night, building the evidence package. Scanned documents, timeline showing payment schedule, matched ship timeline, corporate emails, witness statements from surviving families, photos of Dale Morrison's body clutching payment receipts. Everything the company had tried to bury for 8 years. At 6 a.m., his phone rang. FBI agent named Carson. Mr. Hartley, I understand you removed evidence from the Aurora Dream yesterday. I documented a crime scene. That's not your job. You contaminated. I found proof that Oceanic Ventures executives hired Dale Morrison to murder my wife and 349 other people for insurance money. I found payment schedules on company letterhead. I found emails between VP Stratton and CFO Marks discussing getting rid of the ship. I found Dale Morrison's false identity documents showing he was ex-military mercenary hired specifically for this job. You want to arrest me for removing evidence? Go ahead. But that evidence is already in the hands of every major news organization in the country. Silence on the line. Then, you sent it to media? Sent it at 5:45 a.m. New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, Miami Herald, Boston Globe. Everyone. Your office should be getting the same package right about now. Mr. Hartley, you've compromised an active investigation. Your active investigation has been sitting dormant for 8 years while the company that murdered my wife kept operating. I'm done waiting for bureaucracy. We need those original documents. Come get them. Harbor Inn, room 237. I'll be here all day, but the story's already out. You can't stop it now. Owen hung up. Emma was awake, watching him from the other bed. Did you just declare war on a cruise company? Yeah. Good. Emma sat up. What happens now? Now we wait for them to panic, and then we watch them burn. By 8 a.m., Owen's phone was exploding. News organizations calling for interviews. Other Aurora Dream families calling to thank him. Beth Renner calling to say her lawyer was filing federal criminal complaints against Stratton Marks and Oceanic Ventures CEO Robert Gaines. At 9 a.m., CNN broke the story. Breaking, evidence suggests Oceanic Ventures executives hired contractor to sink Aurora Dream for insurance money. 350 dead in corporate mass murder scheme. By 10 a.m., Oceanic Ventures stock had dropped 40%. Trading was suspended. At 11 a.m., FBI agents arrived at Harbor Inn. Not to arrest Owen, to get his cooperation. Agent Carson looked exhausted. Mr. Hartley, we need everything you have. We're opening criminal investigation into Oceanic Ventures executives. If you have more evidence, we need it now. Owen handed over the waterproof bag. Everything's in there. Payment records, emails, false identity documents, personal journals from the victims showing they figured out what Morrison was doing. You'll want to start with VP David Stratton. Dale Morrison's ex-wife can confirm Stratton visited their house in 2010 to hire Morrison. We're already moving on that. Stratton's being located now for questioning. Don't question him. Arrest him. He hired a mercenary to murder 350 people. My wife is frozen on that ship because of him. Carson nodded. We're coordinating with federal prosecutors. If evidence supports charges, arrests will happen quickly. After the FBI left, Owen and Emma went downstairs. The hotel lobby was packed with reporters. Owen recognized faces from national news. Mr. Hartley, can you comment on the Aurora Dream evidence? Did Oceanic Ventures hire someone to sink the ship? Is it true your wife discovered the sabotage before she died? Owen stopped, looked at the cameras. Emma squeezed his hand. My wife, Claire Hartley, was murdered 8 years ago, Owen said. Not by an accident, not by a tragedy at sea. She was murdered by Oceanic Ventures executives who hired a mercenary to sink their ship for insurance money. Claire figured out what was happening. She tried to stop it. She died trying to save other passengers. She was a hero. So was Captain Roland Voss. So was Chief Engineer Nina Torres. So was ship's physician Leo Brennan. They all died fighting while executives at Oceanic Ventures collected $340 million and kept operating. What do you want to happen now? I want David Stratton arrested. I want Helen Marks arrested. I want CEO Robert Gaines arrested. I want Oceanic Ventures dissolved. And I want every family to know their loved ones didn't die in an accident. They died in a crime. And we're going to make sure justice happens. The reporters exploded with follow-up questions, but Owen was done. He and Emma pushed through to the exit. Outside, Beth Renner was waiting. FBI just called. They're executing search warrants on Oceanic Ventures headquarters right now. Stratton, Marks, and Gaines are being brought in for questioning. Questioning isn't enough. It's a start? Corporate conspiracy cases take time, but with evidence you found, they've got leverage. Owen looked at Emma. You okay? Mom died fighting, Emma said. Everyone's going to know that now. That's what I wanted. Owen pulled his daughter close. 8 years of searching, 8 years of grief and obsession and rage. And now, finally, the truth was coming out. 3 days after Owen released the evidence, FBI arrested David Stratton at his Miami home. News helicopters filmed agents leading him out in handcuffs while his neighbors watched. CFO Helen Marks was arrested at Oceanic Ventures headquarters. CEO Robert Gaines tried to flee to the Bahamas but was stopped at the airport. Owen watched it all on CNN from the hotel room. Emma sat beside him, eating takeout Chinese food, while corporate executives perp-walked across the screen. They look scared, Emma said. They should be. FBI executed search warrants on Oceanic Ventures offices, seizing computers, files, financial records. Agent Carson called Owen daily with updates. We found more emails, Carson said on day 4. Stratton and Marks discussed the Aurora Dream problem for months before hiring Morrison. They knew the ship was failing. They knew selling her wouldn't recoup losses. Insurance fraud was always the plan. Can you prove it? We have email chains going back to June 2010. Stratton wrote, Board wants Aurora Dream retired. We can't afford to operate her, and we can't sell her for what she's worth. Need creative solution. Marks responded, Maritime insurance policies cover catastrophic loss, much more profitable than decommissioning. That's conspiracy to commit insurance fraud right there. What about murder charges? Harder to prove. They'll claim they never intended anyone to die. They'll say Morrison went rogue, exceeded his instructions. Owen felt rage burn in his chest. They paid him $3 million to make the ship disappear with no survivors. That's in the payment schedule. Confirmation of total loss. No survivors. We know. Federal prosecutors are building the case, but corporate executives hide behind layers of deniability. They'll claim the payment schedule was Morrison's interpretation, not their explicit instruction. Then make them testify, put them under oath, and make them explain why they hired a mercenary to sabotage their own ship. That's the plan. Grand jury is convening next week. Owen stayed in Newfoundland with Emma, waiting for Claire's body to be processed. Coast Guard was still cataloging the dead, but Claire was high priority. She'd been identified early, her position documented. Lieutenant Kirby called on day 7. Mr. Hartley, we're releasing your wife's remains tomorrow. She'll be transported to the medical examiner, then released to your custody. I'm sorry this took so long. It's been 8 years. Another week doesn't matter. There's something else. We found more evidence in the ship's computer systems. The hard drives were frozen, but our tech team recovered data. Someone deleted files the day before the disaster. Passenger manifests, crew schedules, maintenance logs. But deleted files leave traces. We recovered them. Who deleted them? Dale Morrison using Keith Walden's credentials. But here's what's interesting. The files he deleted were the ones that showed he'd been granted unusual access permissions. Someone in Oceanic Ventures corporate IT gave Morrison administrative access to ship systems. That access came from Stratton's office. Stratton gave Morrison the keys to destroy the ship. Exactly. Morrison couldn't have sabotaged navigation, communications, and lifeboats without that access. Stratton set it up for him. Owen closed his eyes. Every new piece of evidence made it worse. This wasn't a rogue employee. This was systematic, planned, corporate-approved mass murder. Are you testifying at the grand jury? Owen asked. Yes, along with our chief investigator and the FBI's forensic accountant. We're building an airtight case. On day 8, Owen and Emma flew to Cincinnati with Claire's body. The funeral home met them at the airport. Owen had already arranged everything. Service at St. Michael's, burial next to Claire's parents, headstone that read, Claire Marie Hartley, 1973 to 2011. Beloved wife, mother, and nurse. She tried to save them. The funeral was 3 days later. Hundreds of people came. Family, friends, co-workers from the hospital, people from their old neighborhood. Rachel delivered the eulogy, talking about Claire's stubborn compassion, her inability to walk away from someone who needed help. "My sister saw someone sabotaging a ship and she tried to stop him," Rachel said. "When she couldn't, she ran to the medical bay to help save passengers. That's who Claire was. She couldn't stand by while people suffered. It got her killed. But it also makes her a hero." Owen couldn't speak at the funeral, couldn't find words that captured 8 years of grief and rage, and finally, horribly, closure. Emma spoke instead. She stood at the podium in a black dress, 15 years old, and talked about the mother she barely remembered. "I was 5 when Mom left for that cruise. I don't remember her voice. I don't remember her laugh. I don't remember a lot. But my dad told me who she was, and I found out more when we went to the ship. Mom saw something wrong and she tried to fix it. She died trying to help people. Dad says I'm like her. I hope that's true. I hope I can be as brave as she was." They buried Claire on a cold March afternoon, exactly 8 years and 12 days after she disappeared. Owen stood at the grave with Emma, watching the casket lower into the ground. "She's home," Emma whispered. "Yeah, she's home." The grand jury indicted all 3 executives. Federal prosecutors announced charges: conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice. If convicted, they faced life sentences. Oceanic Ventures filed for bankruptcy within a week. Stock became worthless. Ships were seized by creditors. The company that had operated for 30 years collapsed in days. But the executives fought. David Stratton hired a team of corporate defense attorneys who argued he'd been deceived by Morrison, that he'd hired Morrison as a legitimate security consultant, that he'd never intended anyone to die. "My client believed Mr. Morrison was conducting routine security assessments," Stratton's lawyer told reporters. "He had no knowledge of any sabotage plan. Mr. Morrison was a rogue contractor who betrayed everyone's trust." Owen watched the press conference from his apartment, the same apartment he'd neglected for 8 years while searching for Claire. Emma was at school. Rachel had offered to let them stay with her, but Owen wanted to reclaim his life. He called Beth Renner. "Stratton's claiming he was deceived?" "Let him. Federal prosecutors have the emails. They have the payment schedule. They have Morrison's ex-wife ready to testify that Stratton came to their house personally. Stratton can claim ignorance all he wants. Evidence says otherwise." "When's trial?" "Could be a year, maybe more. These cases take forever." "A year?" Owen felt exhausted. "I can't do this for another year." "You don't have to. You found the evidence. You exposed them. Now let the system handle it." But Owen couldn't let go. He'd spent 8 years searching for Claire. Now he'd spend however long it took making sure her killers paid. 2 months after the funeral, Owen got a call from federal prosecutors. They wanted him to testify when trial started. "We need you to establish the human cost," the prosecutor said. "Jury needs to understand these weren't just abstract victims. They were people with families. Your testimony about losing Claire, about your 8-year search, about finding her frozen on that ship, that's powerful." "I'll testify." "It won't be easy. Defense will try to discredit you, suggest you're motivated by revenge, claim your evidence gathering contaminated the investigation." "I don't care. I want to look David Stratton in the eye and tell him what he took from me." "Then we'll call you as a witness." Owen hung up. Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up. "That was the prosecutor?" "They want me to testify at trial." "When?" "Could be a year from now, maybe longer." Emma nodded, went back to her homework. She'd been quieter since the funeral, more withdrawn. Therapy was helping, but she'd lost 8 years with her mother, and no amount of justice would bring that back. "Em? Yeah? You doing okay?" "I don't know. Some days I'm okay. Some days I'm really angry. Like today I was in history class and the teacher was talking about how corporations have too much power, and I just wanted to scream, A corporation murdered my mother. But I didn't. I just sat there. You can scream if you want. Doesn't bring Mom back. No, it doesn't. They sat in silence for a while. Owen looked around the apartment, still messy with maps and printouts, still obsessive and broken. He needed to clean it, needed to pack up the search materials, needed to start living again instead of hunting ghosts. Dad? Emma closed her textbook. What happens after the trial? After they convict Stratton and the others? What do we do then? Owen didn't have an answer. He'd spent 8 years with one goal, find Claire. He'd accomplished that. Now he had a new goal, destroy the people who killed her. But after that? I don't know, he admitted. Maybe we figure out how to be normal. Think we can? I don't know that either. Emma smiled sadly. At least we're honest. Owen pulled his daughter into a hug. She was 15, almost grown, almost ready to leave for college and her own life. He'd missed so much of her childhood, obsessing over the Aurora Dream. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For being gone 8 years? For choosing the search over you? You were looking for Mom. I get it. Doesn't make it okay? No, but it makes sense. Emma pulled back, looked at her father. You're here now. That's what matters. They ordered pizza and watched a movie. Something stupid and funny that had nothing to do with cruise ships or corporate conspiracies or frozen bodies. For 2 hours, they pretended to be normal. And maybe eventually they would be. 6 months after the arrests, federal prosecutors called Owen again. Stratton's team is offering a plea deal. He'll plead guilty to conspiracy to commit insurance fraud if we drop the murder charges. No? Mr. Hartley, no. He hired Dale Morrison to kill 350 people. He gave Morrison access to ship systems. He paid him in installments. He wrote emails discussing getting rid of the ship. He personally visited Morrison's house to recruit him. That's conspiracy to commit murder. I don't care if it takes 5 years. You make that charge stick. Without the plea deal, trial could last months. Defense will drag it out. Stratton has money for expensive lawyers. I don't care. Put him on trial. Make him answer for what he did. The prosecutor sighed. We'll decline the plea offer. But, Mr. Hartley, I need you to understand, trials are unpredictable. Evidence that seems airtight can fall apart. Juries are human. They make mistakes. Then I'll live with whatever happens, but I won't let Stratton plead down to insurance fraud when he murdered my wife. Understood. We go to trial. Owen hung up and stared out the window. Emma would be home from school soon. Rachel was coming for dinner. Life was slowly, painfully, returning to something resembling normal. But normal would never include Claire, and until David Stratton and Helen Marks and Robert Gaines were in prison, Owen couldn't let go. Justice wasn't closure, but it was something. It had to be enough. 14 months after the arrests, trial began. Federal courthouse in Miami, security tight, media circus outside. Owen and Emma flew down with Rachel. Beth Renner was already there with her family. Martin Ross arrived with his wife. The families of the Aurora Dream filled the courtroom gallery. David Stratton sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, looking calm and corporate. Helen Marks beside him, equally composed. Robert Gaines at a separate table. His lawyers had argued for separate trials, but the judge denied it. The conspiracy involved all 3 defendants, Judge Martinez ruled. They'll face justice together. Federal prosecutor was a woman named Sandra Reeves, mid-40s, reputation for destroying white-collar criminals. She'd spent a year building the case, assembling evidence, preparing witnesses. Owen was scheduled to testify on day 3. The first 2 days were technical. Forensic accountants explaining money trails, FBI agents walking through the evidence timeline, Coast Guard investigators describing the ship's condition. Defense attorneys objected constantly, trying to exclude evidence, arguing Morrison had acted alone without corporate knowledge. The payment schedule was Morrison's fabrication, Stratton's lawyer argued. He created fake documents on Oceanic Ventures letterhead to legitimize his crimes. My client never authorized those payments. Then explain the wire transfers, Reeves countered. 8 payments totaling $2.8 million from Oceanic Ventures corporate accounts to Morrison's Cayman Islands Shell Company. Each payment approved by Helen Marks as CFO and authorized by David Stratton as VP Operations. Legitimate consulting fees for security assessments. $2.8 million for security assessments on a ship that was scheduled for decommissioning? Does that make sense to anyone? The jury looked skeptical. That's what Owen held on to, the jury's faces showing they weren't buying the defense. On day 3, Reeves called Owen to testify. He took the stand, right hand raised, swore to tell the truth, looked out at the courtroom, packed with families, reporters, lawyers. And at the defense table, David Stratton staring at him with cold, calculating eyes. Reeves approached. "Mr. Hartley, please state your relationship to this case." "My wife, Claire Hartley, was a passenger on the Aurora Dream. She died when the ship was sabotaged in March 2011. "How long were you married?" 13 years. "You have a daughter?" "Emma. She was 5 when Claire died. She's 16 now." Reeves walked Owen through the 8-year search. The private investigators, the false leads, the $127,000 he'd spent trying to find answers, the toll it took on his life. Jobs lost, relationships destroyed, his daughter growing up without a mother or a functional father. "When did you learn the Aurora Dream had been found?" "March 15, 2019. Coast Guard called me. Ship was frozen between icebergs off Newfoundland." "What did you do?" "Flew to Newfoundland with Emma. Lieutenant Kirby eventually gave us access to board the ship." "What did you find aboard the Aurora Dream?" Owen described it carefully. Claire's cabin, her journal documenting Keith Walden's suspicious behavior. Captain Voss's log showing navigation sabotage. Nina Torres's maintenance records. Dr. Leo Brennan's diary identifying Keith Walden as using a false name. "And where did you find your wife's body?" Owen's throat tightened. "Outside the medical bay, she was frozen against the wall, one hand reaching for the door. She'd been trying to get to the medical center to help save passengers." "How do you know that?" "We found radio dispatch logs. Claire had contacted Dr. Brennan, told him she'd seen someone destroying equipment. She identified Keith Walden as dangerous. When temperatures dropped and passengers started suffering hypothermia, she ran to the medical bay to help. She was an ER nurse. That's who she was, someone who ran toward emergencies." Reeves introduced the radio logs into evidence, read them aloud. Claire's final message. "I'm coming to medical to help. I'm a trauma nurse. You're going to need me." Several jurors wiped their eyes. "Mr. Hartley, you also found documents on Keith Walden's body. Can you describe those?" "Payment schedule on Oceanic Ventures letterhead. 8 payments totaling $2.8 million. Final payment of $3 million promised on confirmation of total loss, no survivors." False identity documents showing Keith Walden was actually Dale Morrison, ex-military with dishonorable discharge, and a handwritten note with instructions to make the disaster look accidental. How did Dale Morrison gain access to ship systems? Someone in Oceanic Ventures IT gave him administrative credentials. We traced it back to David Stratton's office. Stratton's lawyer objected. "Speculation. The witness isn't a forensic analyst." "Sustained," Judge Martinez said. Reeves adjusted. "FBI forensic analysis traced those credentials to Mr. Stratton's office, correct?" "Correct." "And Dale Morrison's ex-wife testified that someone from Oceanic Ventures visited their home in 2010 to recruit Morrison. Did she identify who?" "She identified the title, Vice President of Operations. That's David Stratton." Reeves let that sit with the jury. Then, "Mr. Hartley, what did you do with this evidence?" "I gave it to FBI, and I sent copies to every major news organization. I wasn't going to let the company bury it." "Why not wait for the FBI to release the information?" "Because I'd spent 8 years watching Oceanic Ventures hide the truth. They collected $340 million in insurance while telling families it was an unexplained tragedy. They knew what happened. They knew they'd hired someone to destroy their ship. I wasn't giving them another day to profit from my wife's murder." Stratton's lawyer stood. "Objection. Assumes facts, not in evidence." "Overruled," Martinez said. The witness is explaining his state of mind. Reeves finished with Owen, turned him over to defense. Stratton's lawyer, a man named Crenshaw, expensive suit, practiced smile, approached like they were old friends. "Mr. Hartley, I'm sorry for your loss." Owen didn't respond. "You testified that you spent $127,000 searching for your wife over 8 years. That's a lot of money. Were you in financial trouble?" "Objection," Reeves said. "Relevance?" "Goes to witness credibility, Your Honor." "I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mr. Hartley." "Yes," Owen said. "I was in financial trouble. Spent every dollar I had searching for Claire." "Lost your job multiple times?" "4 times." "Struggled to pay rent?" "Yes." "So when you found evidence that might be valuable, documents, payment schedules, corporate emails, you saw an opportunity?" Owen felt rage burn in his chest. "An opportunity for what?" "To sell your story, make money from the tragedy. You sent evidence to news organizations before giving it to FBI. Were you negotiating payment for interviews?" "No." "But you did give interviews, television appearances, book deals offered?" "I gave interviews to expose the company that murdered my wife. And yes, publishers contacted me. I haven't signed anything because I don't want money. I want justice." "But you removed evidence from a federal crime scene. You contaminated an investigation. Some might say you were motivated by profit, not justice." Owen leaned forward. "My wife died trying to save people while your client collected $340 million. He hired a mercenary to kill 350 innocent people, and you're standing here suggesting I'm the one motivated by money?" "Objection," Crenshaw said. Non-responsive. "I'll rephrase," Owen said before the judge could speak. "I took evidence because I didn't trust the system to do its job. I was right. FBI sat on this case for years. If I hadn't forced it into the open, your client would still be walking free." Crenshaw tried several more attacks, suggesting Owen's obsession made him unreliable, that grief clouded his judgment, that his evidence gathering was contaminated. Owen answered each question calmly, refusing to be rattled. Finally, Crenshaw said, "You want revenge, don't you, Mr. Hartley?" "I want justice." "What's the difference?" "Justice acknowledges what happened. Revenge is personal satisfaction. I don't need satisfaction. I need David Stratton to go to prison for murdering my wife." "You never met Mr. Stratton before this trial?" "No." "Never spoke to him?" "No." "So you're basing your accusations on documents you removed from a crime scene and your interpretation of corporate emails." "I'm basing my accusations on evidence that proves your client hired Dale Morrison, paid him $2.8 million, gave him access to ship systems, and wrote emails discussing how to profit from the Aurora Dream's destruction." Crenshaw smiled like he'd won something. "But you're not a forensic expert. You're not a prosecutor. You're a grieving husband who spent 8 years obsessed with finding answers. Isn't it possible you've misinterpreted evidence to fit your narrative?" "No." "How can you be sure?" Owen looked directly at David Stratton. "Because Dale Morrison's ex-wife identified your client as the man who came to their house in 2010. Because wire transfers match the payment schedule exactly. Because Morrison couldn't have accessed ship systems without authorization from Stratton's office. Because Captain Voss wrote in his log that Morrison sabotaged the ship. Because Nina Torres documented systematic sabotage in her maintenance records. Because my wife wrote in her journal that she saw Morrison acting suspicious days before the disaster. Because Morrison died clutching payment receipts with Oceanic Ventures letterhead. That's not misinterpretation. That's evidence." Crenshaw had no response to that. He dismissed Owen. Owen left the stand shaking. Emma and Rachel were waiting in the hallway during lunch recess. "You did good," Rachel said. "Stratton's lawyer made me look obsessed." "You are obsessed. But you're also right." Emma squeezed his hand. "Everyone in that courtroom knows Stratton did it. His lawyer can try to confuse things, but the evidence is clear." They ate lunch in silence, sandwiches from the courthouse cafeteria, barely tasting the food. Other families were scattered around, all waiting for justice. Beth Renner joined them. "Martin testifies this afternoon. Then they're calling Morrison's ex-wife. Defense is going to try to destroy her, claim she's lying for attention. Will she hold up? She's stronger than she looks, and she's got proof Stratton visited. Neighbors remember seeing an expensive car with rental plates. Morrison took photos of the business card Stratton gave him. Everything checks out. Court resumed. Martin testified about finding the emails, about the timeline proving premeditation. Morrison's ex-wife testified about Stratton's visit, about the $3 million offer, about Morrison laughing and saying it had to be illegal. Defense ripped into her, claimed she was making it up, claimed she had no proof, but she stayed calm. I know what I saw. A man from Oceanic Ventures offered my ex-husband $3 million for a job. Dale took photos of the business card because he thought it was suspicious. Those photos still exist. They match David Stratton. By the end of the day, the jury looked convinced. The evidence was overwhelming, but Stratton still sat at the defense table, calm and composed, like none of this touched him. Owen wanted to walk across the courtroom and put his hands around Stratton's throat, wanted to make him feel what Claire felt, what 350 people felt as they froze to death. But that wasn't justice. That was revenge. So Owen sat in the gallery with his daughter and waited for the system to work. On day 7, it was Stratton's turn to testify. His lawyers had tried to keep him off the stand, but the jury needed to hear his story. Stratton took the oath, sat down, looked directly at the jury with practiced sincerity. Crenshaw led him through the defense. Stratton had hired Morrison as a legitimate security consultant. Morrison had presented credentials showing maritime security experience. The payments were for consultation services. Stratton had no knowledge of any sabotage plan. Did you instruct Dale Morrison to destroy the Aurora Dream? Absolutely not. Did you know Morrison was planning to sabotage ship systems? No. I believed he was conducting security assessments and vulnerability testing. When did you learn Morrison had sabotaged the ship? Not until the ship disappeared and FBI began investigating. I was as shocked as anyone. It was smooth, practiced, believable. If Owen hadn't seen the evidence, he might have bought it. Then it was Reeves's turn. She approached Stratton with a stack of documents. Mr. Stratton, you testified you hired Dale Morrison as a security consultant? Correct. Why didn't you hire one of the dozens of established maritime security firms? Morrison came highly recommended. By whom? Stratton hesitated. I'd have to check my records. We checked your records. There's no documentation of any recommendation. Morrison contacted you directly, didn't he? I don't recall the specifics. Let me refresh your memory. Reeves showed an email. September 2, 2010. Morrison sends you an email offering discreet consultation services for problematic maritime assets. You responded within an hour. Interested. Let's meet in person. You arranged to meet Morrison at his home in Nevada rather than in any professional setting. Why? I wanted to assess him personally. Or you didn't want a record of the meeting at your office? You didn't want security cameras or assistants documenting the conversation? That's not. You visited Morrison's home on September 8, 2010. 6 days later, you authorized a $500,000 payment to a Cayman Islands shell company. What was that payment for? Initial consulting fees. $500,000 before any work was done? Before any assessment was completed? Mr. Stratton, what maritime security consultant charges $500,000 up front? The Aurora Dream required extensive evaluation. The Aurora Dream was scheduled for decommissioning. Your own emails show the ship was losing money, impossible to sell. Why would you pay $500,000 to evaluate a ship you were planning to retire? Stratton's composure cracked slightly. We were exploring all options. Reeves showed more emails. August 24, 2010. You wrote to Helen Marks. Board wants solutions for Aurora Dream. Can't afford to operate her. Can't sell her for what she's worth. Marks responded, Maritime insurance covers catastrophic loss, much more profitable than decommissioning. You replied, exploring that option. What option were you exploring, Mr. Stratton? Insurance policy adjustments. 10 days after that email, you took out a $340 million insurance policy on the Aurora Dream, 3 times the ship's value. Then you hired Dale Morrison. Then Morrison sabotaged the ship. Then you collected $340 million. Are we supposed to believe that's coincidence? The insurance policy was standard business practice. $340 million is not standard. The Aurora Dream was worth maybe $120 million on a good day. You insured her for triple that amount and then hired someone to make sure she disappeared. That's not coincidence, Mr. Stratton. That's premeditation. Stratton's lawyer objected, but Judge Martinez overruled. The jury was listening intently. Reeves continued. Dale Morrison couldn't have sabotaged ship systems without administrative access credentials. Those credentials came from your office. How do you explain that? IT must have granted access for his security assessment. IT records show the authorization came from your computer using your login at 2:30 a.m. on October 15, 2010. Were you in the office at 2:30 in the morning? I often worked late. Or were you hiding the authorization, granting Morrison access to ship systems at a time when no one would notice? That's speculation. Is it? Captain Roland Voss wrote in his log that Morrison destroyed communications equipment. Nina Torres documented Morrison sabotaging fuel lines and navigation systems. Dr. Leo Brennan identified Morrison as using a false identity. My client Claire Hartley observed Morrison acting suspicious and tried to warn people. They all died trying to stop Morrison, and Morrison died clutching payment receipts with your company's letterhead. How do you explain any of that? Stratton's face was red now. I can't explain Morrison's actions. He was clearly unstable. But you hired him. You paid him $2.8 million. You gave him access to destroy a ship, and 350 people died. That's not Morrison acting alone. That's you orchestrating mass murder for profit. Objection! Crenshaw was on his feet. Counsel is testifying. Sustained. Rephrase, Ms. Reeves. Mr. Stratton, did you know that Dale Morrison had a dishonorable discharge from the military? No. Did you know he'd been court-martialed for equipment theft? No. Did you conduct any background check at all before paying him $500,000? I relied on his credentials, which were falsified, which Morrison admits in documents found on his body. So either you're incompetent, paying $500,000 to a man you never properly vetted, or you knew exactly who Morrison was and what he could do. Which is it? Stratton had no good answer. I trusted the wrong person. You trusted a killer to kill, and 350 people died because of it. Reeves dismissed Stratton. He walked back to the defense table, looking rattled. Owen watched from the gallery and allowed himself to hope. Justice wasn't certain, but it was close. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Owen stayed in Miami with Emma, barely sleeping, checking his phone constantly for news. On day 3, the call came. Verdict reached. The courtroom was packed when they returned. Owen sat in the front row with Emma, Rachel, Beth, and Martin. Every Aurora Dream family who could make it was there. Judge Martinez took the bench. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find the defendant, David Stratton? Guilty. The courtroom erupted. Owen felt Emma grab his hand, felt tears burn his eyes. Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, how do you find the defendant, David Stratton? Guilty. On the charge of obstruction of justice? Guilty. All 3 defendants. Guilty on all counts. Stratton, Marks, and Gaines sat frozen at their tables while families cheered behind them. Martinez gavelled for order. Sentencing will be set for 60 days. Defendants will remain in custody until that time. U.S. Marshals led Stratton away in handcuffs. He looked back once, scanning the gallery. His eyes met Owen's. Owen stared back. No satisfaction, no triumph. Just 8 years of grief finally acknowledged. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Owen stood with the other families and made a brief statement. David Stratton, Helen Marks, and Robert Gaines murdered 350 people for money. Today, a jury said that won't be tolerated. My wife Claire died trying to save people. Captain Voss died trying to save his ship. Nina Torres died exposing sabotage. Dr. Brennan died treating patients. They were heroes. The people convicted today are murderers. Nothing can bring our families back. But at least now the truth is known. 60 days later, sentencing. Judge Martinez showed no mercy. David Stratton, you orchestrated the murder of 350 innocent people to collect insurance money. You hired a killer, gave him access to destroy a ship, and abandoned him to die with his victims when extraction failed. Your actions showed complete disregard for human life. This court sentences you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Stratton's face went pale. His lawyers immediately began filing appeals, but Owen knew they'd fail. The evidence was overwhelming. Helen Marks received 40 years. Robert Gaines received life. All three would die in prison. Owen and Emma flew back to Cincinnati. The apartment felt different now, still messy, still cluttered with 8 years of obsession. But the search was over. The answers were found. Justice was done. "What do we do now?" Emma asked, same question she'd asked before. "We clean this place up," Owen said. "Box up the maps and the search files. Keep Claire's journal and a few photos. Donate the rest to that maritime museum that keeps asking." They spent a weekend packing. 8 years of research, newspaper clippings, Coast Guard reports, maritime charts. Everything that had consumed Owen's life went into boxes. He kept Claire's journal. The last photo of the three of them, Easter 2011. Claire's wedding ring. The radio dispatch log showing her final messages. Everything else could go. Rachel came over to help. "You keeping the apartment?" "For now. Emma's got 2 more years of high school. After she graduates, maybe we'll move. Start fresh somewhere." "What about work?" Owen had been unemployed since leaving for Newfoundland 2 years ago, living off Claire's life insurance, his savings, and the small settlement from Oceanic Ventures' bankruptcy liquidation. Money was running out. "I've got interviews lined up. Couple engineering firms, 1 manufacturing plant. Nothing exciting, but it'll pay bills." "You could write that book. Publishers are still calling." "I don't want to profit from Claire's death." "It's not profit. It's telling her story, making sure people remember what happened." Owen looked at the boxes stacked in his living room. Claire's story was in there, her journal, her choices, her heroism. Maybe it deserved to be told. "I'll think about it." Emma went back to school, fell back into teenage life, homework, friends, college applications. She was a junior now, thinking about universities. She'd missed so much growing up without her mother, but she was resilient, strong, like Claire. Owen got hired at an engineering firm downtown. Basic work, steady hours, nothing glamorous. But it felt good to have structure again, to wake up for a purpose that wasn't searching or grieving. At lunch one day, his coworker asked about the Aurora Dream case. Everyone knew Owen's story. It had been national news. "Must feel good," the coworker said, "getting justice." "Yeah," Owen said, "it does." But the truth was more complicated. Justice meant Stratton was in prison. Justice meant the world knew what happened. Justice meant Claire's death wasn't meaningless, but it didn't bring her back. 6 months after sentencing, Owen visited Claire's grave. First time since the burial, he brought flowers, white roses, her favorite. The headstone looked good. Simple granite, the words he'd chosen. Claire Marie Hartley, 1973 to 2011. Beloved wife, mother, and nurse. She tried to save them. Owen sat on the cold ground, back against the headstone. "We got them, Claire. Stratton, Marks, Gaines, all in prison for life. Won't bring you back, but at least they're paying for it. Emma's doing okay. She's strong, like you. Looks like you too. She's thinking about nursing school. Can you believe that? After everything, she still wants to help people. You'd be proud." The wind blew cold across the cemetery. Owen pulled his jacket tighter. "I'm trying to move on, getting back to work, rebuilding my life. But I can't shake the feeling I wasted 8 years. Emma needed me, and I was chasing ghosts. She says she understands, but I know I failed her. Failed you. You died trying to save people, and I spent 8 years obsessing instead of raising our daughter." No answer, just wind and distant traffic. Rachel says I should write it all down. Publishers want the story. I don't know. Feels like exploitation. But maybe you'd want people to know what you did, how you fought, how you died trying to help. Owen stood, brushed grass off his jeans, touched the headstone. I love you, Claire. Always will. I'm sorry it took me 8 years to bring you home. That night, Owen opened his laptop, started writing, not for publishers or money, for Emma. So when she was older, when her memories of Claire were even fainter, she'd have something concrete, a record of who her mother was. He wrote about meeting Claire in college, about their wedding, about Emma being born, about Claire's work at the hospital, the way she couldn't pass someone in pain without stopping to help. He wrote about the Aurora Dream, about Claire's journal entries noticing Keith Walden's suspicious behavior, about her radio messages offering to help in the medical bay, about finding her body frozen outside that door, still trying to save lives. He wrote about the 8-year search, the obsession that consumed him, the jobs he lost, the relationships he destroyed, the time he stole from Emma. He wrote about finding the evidence, exposing Oceanic Ventures, the trial, the conviction, and he wrote about what came after, the grief that didn't end, the justice that didn't heal, the slow, painful process of learning to live without Claire while raising the daughter they'd made together. He wrote for 6 months, 60,000 words. Claire's story, Owen's story, Emma's story. The Aurora Dream disaster from beginning to end. When he finished, he gave it to Emma first. She read it over a weekend, didn't speak to him until Monday morning. Her eyes were red when she came downstairs. You really spent 8 years searching? Yeah. I knew you were gone a lot. I didn't know it was this bad. I'm sorry. Don't be. You found Mom. You got justice. That matters. Emma held up the manuscript. This is good, Dad. People should read this. You sure? Mom's story deserves to be told. What Oceanic Ventures did deserves to be known. And people should understand what families go through when someone just disappears. 8 years of not knowing is worse than death. At least now we know. Owen sent the manuscript to publishers. 3 made offers. He picked the one that promised all profits beyond the advance would go to a foundation for families of maritime disasters. The book came out a year later. The Aurora Dream, 8 years of searching for justice. It made the New York Times bestseller list, not because people wanted disaster porn, but because Claire's story resonated. A nurse who died trying to save others. A husband who wouldn't stop searching. A daughter who grew up without her mother, but inherited her compassion. Owen did interviews, but kept them focused on the victims. On Captain Voss and Nina Torres and Dr. Brennan and the 346 passengers who froze trying to survive. And on Claire, who'd noticed something wrong and tried to stop it. Emma graduated high school, got accepted to nursing school at Ohio State. Owen helped her move into the dorms, overwhelmed by how fast she'd grown up. You sure about nursing? He asked. After everything that happened to your mom? Because of what happened to Mom, Emma corrected. She died helping people. I want to do the same. Just promise me you'll be careful. I promise, Dad. Emma hugged him. And thanks for finding Mom, for getting justice, for finally being here. I'm always going to be here now. Good. Owen drove back to Cincinnati alone. The apartment felt empty without Emma, but it was a different emptiness than before. Not the hollow obsession of 8 years searching, just the natural quiet of a parent whose child had grown up and moved on. He thought about Claire often, wondered what she'd think of Emma choosing nursing, wondered if she'd be proud of Owen for exposing Oceanic Ventures or angry at him for wasting 8 years. Probably both. 2 years after Emma started college, Owen got a call from Beth Renner. Have you seen the news? Maritime Safety Act passed Congress. New regulations for cruise ship communications, mandatory real-time GPS tracking that can't be disabled by crew, independent safety inspections. They're calling it the Aurora Dream Act. Because of the case? Because of the families who fought. Because we refused to let 350 people die in silence. The law requires cruise lines to maintain redundant safety systems, so what happened to the Aurora Dream can't happen again. Owen felt something shift in his chest. Not closure. He'd never have that. But meaning? Claire's death had changed maritime law, had made ships safer, had saved lives that would have been lost to future conspiracies. She'd like that, Owen said. Claire always wanted to save people. She did, and in a way, she still is. 10 years after Claire died, Owen visited her grave again, brought white roses, sat against the headstone in familiar position. Emma's graduating nursing school next month, top of her class. She's engaged to a guy named Michael. He's good, Claire. Treats her right. They're talking about working with Doctors Without Borders, can you imagine? Our daughter's going to save lives all over the world. The cemetery was quiet. Early morning, no other visitors yet. I started dating someone. Rachel set us up. Her name's Linda. She's a widow. Lost her husband 5 years ago. It's slow, careful. I'm not replacing you, Claire. Nobody could. But Linda understands grief. Understands that you don't move on from loss. You just learn to carry it. Owen traced Claire's name on the stone. Stratton died in prison last month. Heart attack. He was only 62. Marks is appealing her sentence, but it won't matter. Gaines is still alive, still locked up. The company's gone, liquidated, name destroyed. They'll never operate another ship. A jogger passed by in the distance, life continuing, oblivious to the grief contained in this small plot of earth. I miss you every day, but I'm okay now. Emma's okay. We survived. And your story, what you did, how you fought, it matters. Ships are safer because of what happened. Families have laws protecting them because we refused to stay quiet. 350 people died, but their deaths changed things. Owen stood, placed the roses on the grave. I'll be back next month for Emma's graduation. I wish you could be there, but I'll tell her you're proud, because I know you are. He walked back to his car. The sun was rising over Cincinnati, light breaking through clouds. Owen drove home to his apartment, cleaner now, organized, no more maps on the walls. Emma called that afternoon. Hey, Dad, just wanted to check in. How's studying? Brutal, boards next week, but I'm ready. You're going to do great. I know, Mom would have helped me study. She always knew this stuff. She would have been so proud of you, Em. I hope so, Emma paused. Dad, thank you. For everything, for finding her, for getting justice, for not giving up. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. You saved Mom's story, made sure people knew she was a hero. That matters. After Emma hung up, Owen sat at his kitchen table, thought about the last 10 years, the obsession, the search, the discovery, the trial, the grief that never fully faded, but slowly, gradually, became bearable. Claire was gone. Justice was done. Life continued. It wasn't the ending Owen would have chosen, but it was the one he had. And somehow, finally, that was enough. 2 years later, 2021. Owen stood in his apartment, boxing up the last of the search materials. Maps, Coast Guard reports, 8 years of obsession going into storage. Emma was packing for college. Ohio State, nursing program. She'd be leaving in 2 weeks. You keeping all of this? She asked, gesturing at the boxes. Maritime Museum wants it. They're building an exhibit about the Aurora Dream. Thought the search materials belonged there. What about Mom's journal? That stays with us. Some things aren't for museums. They worked in silence, dismantling 8 years of Owen's life, piece by piece. The apartment looked bigger without maps, covering every wall. Owen's phone rang. Beth Renner. Owen, have you seen the news? David Stratton died, heart attack in prison. He was 68. Owen felt nothing, no satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness. When? Last night. Medical unit couldn't save him. He was still filing appeals, still claiming innocence. After hanging up, Owen told Emma. Good, she said flatly. He deserved worse. Maybe. But it's over now. Is it? Marks and Gaines are still alive. They're in prison for life? That's enough? Emma looked at her father. Is it enough for you? Really? Owen thought about it. It has to be. Stratton's dead. The company's destroyed. Ships are safer because of the Aurora Dream Act. Claire's death mattered. That's all I can ask for. What about you? What do you get? I get you. I get to watch you become a nurse like your mom. I get to know I didn't give up. That's enough. 6 months later, spring 2022. Emma came home for spring break, found Owen cleaning out the garage, more boxes being sorted. You selling the apartment? Thinking about it. You're at school 9 months a year. Place feels empty. Where would you go? Don't know yet. Somewhere that isn't haunted by 8 years of obsession. Emma sat on a box, watched her father work. I met someone, at school. His name's Michael. Pre-med. You happy? Yeah, I am. He knows about Mom, about everything. Doesn't make it weird. That's good. Owen stopped packing. Your mom would like that you're moving forward. She wouldn't want you stuck. What about you? When do you move forward? Owen didn't have an answer. 1 year later, March 2023. 12 years after the Aurora Dream disappeared, Owen attended the memorial service in Miami. Annual gathering of families, smaller each year. Some people moving on, some still too broken to leave. Beth Renner was there with her grown children, Martin Ross with his wife, dozens of others. How many are we now? Owen asked Beth. Maybe 80 people. Used to be hundreds. Time moves on. People heal. Or they learn to fake it. Same thing, isn't it? The memorial wall looked the same. Black granite, 350 names. Claire Marie Hartley carved near the middle. Owen traced her name with his finger like he'd done a dozen times before. I'm thinking about selling the apartment, he said. Moving to Columbus, near Emma. She graduates nursing school next year. Wants me close. That's good. Cincinnati has too many ghosts for you. Everywhere has ghosts when you've lost someone. True, but some places make it easier to breathe. After the service, Owen drove to the beach, sat watching waves crash, thinking about 12 years of grief that refused to fade. Claire was gone. Stratton was dead. Justice was done. But Owen still felt hollow, like he'd spent so much energy searching and fighting that he'd forgotten how to just live. His phone buzzed. Text from Emma. Talked to Michael about moving in together next year. Wanted to tell you first. Thoughts? Owen smiled. Life continuing. Emma building her future. That's what mattered. Your mom would be happy, he typed back. So am I. Fall 2023. Owen moved to Columbus, small apartment near Ohio State campus, 20 minutes from Emma. Sold most of his furniture, kept only what mattered, photos of Claire, her journal, the wedding ring he'd found on that frozen ship. The new apartment felt temporary, like he was between lives. One ended when Claire died, the next not quite started. Emma came over the day he moved in, brought pizza and beer. Place looks good? It's a box, but it's close to you. That's what matters. Emma handed him a beer. Dad, I need to tell you something. Michael proposed. I said yes. Owen felt his throat tighten. When? Last week. We're thinking next summer. Small ceremony. You'll walk me down the aisle? Of course. Owen pulled his daughter into a hug. Your mom would be so proud. I wish she could be there. She will be. You'll feel her. They sat on the floor of the empty apartment, eating pizza straight from the box like they had when Emma was little and Claire was still alive. Do you think about her every day? Emma asked. Every day. Sometimes it's just a flash. Something reminds me of her voice or her laugh. Sometimes it's heavier. But yeah, every day. Me too. I'm 23 now. Only 15 more years until I'm older than she ever got to be. That's weird to think about. Yeah, it is. Dad, are you happy? Owen considered the question. I don't know if happy is the right word. I'm less broken, less obsessed, trying to figure out who I am when I'm not searching for answers. And? Still figuring it out. Spring 2024. Emma graduated nursing school, top 15% of her class. Owen sat in the audience, wishing Claire was beside him, wishing she could see their daughter walk across that stage. After the ceremony, Emma found him in the crowd. Mom would have cried, she said. She would have been unbearable, taking 1,000 photos, telling everyone within earshot that her daughter was a nurse. Good, that's how it should have been. They went to dinner. Owen, Emma, Michael, Rachel, and a few of Emma's friends. Normal life, normal celebration. Nothing about frozen ships or murdered passengers or corporate conspiracies. For the first time in 13 years, Owen felt something close to peace. Summer 2024. Emma's wedding was small, 20 people at a courthouse, reception at a local restaurant. Emma wore a simple dress, no veil. Michael looked nervous and happy. Owen walked his daughter down the aisle, 10 feet in a judge's chambers, but it counted. "You ready?" he whispered, terrified. "But yeah." "Your mom would have loved this, would have fussed over your dress, cried during the vows, embarrassed you completely." "I miss her so much today." "Me too. But she's here. Look at you. You're a nurse. You're getting married. You're building a life helping people. You're exactly who she would have wanted you to be." The ceremony was quick. Judge read the vows. Emma and Michael exchanged rings, and suddenly Owen's little girl was married. At the reception, Rachel cornered him. "You doing okay?" "Yeah. Good day. Hard day. Both." Claire would be proud. Of Emma, of you for not falling apart. "I fell apart for 8 years. But you put yourself back together. That counts." Owen looked across the room at Emma laughing with Michael, surrounded by friends. Life that existed despite tragedy. Life that continued because people refused to give up. "Rachel, thank you for everything, for helping with Emma when I was obsessed, for not giving up on me. Your family, that's what we do." Fall 2024, 13 years after the Aurora Dream. Owen got a call from a producer. They were making a documentary about the Aurora Dream, wanted his participation. "We're focusing on how families fought for justice," the producer said. "Your story, 8 years of searching, finding the evidence, exposing the company. It's the spine of the whole film." "I don't want to do more interviews. I've told the story 100 times. This is different. We're showing the long-term impact. The Aurora Dream Act saved lives. Ships are safer now because of what happened. That matters." Owen thought about it. "What do you need from me?" "One interview, talk about Claire, about the search, about what it cost you. And maybe visit the memorial one more time. We'll film that." "When?" "Next month, Miami." Owen agreed. One more interview, one more visit to the memorial. Then he could close this chapter. Owen stood in front of the granite wall while cameras filmed. Producer asking questions, Owen answering on autopilot. "What do you want people to remember about Claire?" "That she fought, that she saw something wrong and tried to stop it, that she died running toward danger to help others. That's who she was." "And the company? Oceanic Ventures? Remember that corporations will murder if the spreadsheet says it's profitable. 350 people died because executives valued profit over lives. That's why laws had to change. That's why families couldn't stay silent." "Do you have closure now?" Owen looked at Claire's name on the wall. "I don't think closure exists. You don't close grief like closing a book. You carry it. Some days it's lighter, but it never goes away." 13 years later, was it worth it? The 8-year search, the trial, the fight? Worth it? That's the wrong question. It was necessary. Claire died, and I couldn't let her death be meaningless. The search nearly destroyed me, cost me jobs, relationships, time with Emma. But if I hadn't done it, Stratton would have gotten away with mass murder. So was it worth it? I don't know. But it was necessary. After filming ended, Owen stood alone at the memorial, traced Claire's name one more time. 13 years, Claire. Emma's married now. She's an ER nurse at Columbus General. Saves lives every day like you did. Michael's good to her. They're talking about kids. You're going to be a grandmother. Can you believe that? The memorial was quiet. Just Owen and the wall and 350 names. "I'm okay now. Finally. Took 13 years, but I'm okay. The obsession's gone. The rage is gone. What's left is just missing you, and that's normal. That's grief without the madness. Owen pulled out his phone, took a final photo of Claire's name. I'm not going to visit as much anymore. Emma needs her dad present, not haunted. I need to focus on living instead of searching. But I'll never forget you. I'll never stop missing you. And I'll make sure Emma tells your grandkids who you were, a nurse who couldn't walk past suffering without stopping to help. He stepped back from the wall. Goodbye, Claire. Thank you for Emma. Thank you for 13 good years before it all ended. Thank you for fighting until the end. Your death mattered. I made sure it mattered. Owen walked away from the memorial for the last time. Owen visited Emma and Michael's apartment, found Emma looking at apartments online. What's this? Seattle. There's an emergency medicine fellowship at Harborview Medical Center. Michael got accepted to their residency program. We're thinking about moving. That's across the country. I know. You just moved here to be close. Now we're leaving. I'm sorry. Owen sat down. 13 years of grief had taught him one thing. You can't hold on to people. You can only love them while they're here. Don't be sorry. Go. Take the opportunity. Your mom would want you following your dreams. What about you? I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll move to Seattle too. Or maybe I'll stay here. Point is, I'm okay now. For the first time in 13 years, I'm actually okay. I can handle you moving across the country. Emma hugged him. Thank you for not falling apart. Thank you for giving me a reason to put myself back together. 3 months later, December 2024. Owen sat in his Columbus apartment on a cold December night. Emma and Michael were packing for Seattle. Rachel was hosting Christmas in Cincinnati. Life was moving forward, whether Owen was ready or not. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Mr. Hartley, this is Sandra Reeves, the prosecutor from the Oceanic Ventures trial. I remember. Helen Marks died today. Stroke in prison. She was 71. Thought you should know. Another one gone. Stratton dead. Marks dead. Only Gaines left, and he'd die in prison eventually, too. Thank you for calling. Mr. Hartley, I know this doesn't change anything, doesn't bring your wife back, but I wanted you to know the Aurora Dream Act has prevented 3 potential disasters in the last 2 years. Ships where sabotage was detected early because of redundant safety systems. Lives were saved because of what you exposed. Owen felt something loosen in his chest. How many lives? Over 2,000 passengers who would have been on those ships if the sabotage succeeded. The laws you fought for are working. After hanging up, Owen sat in the dark apartment for a long time. 2,000 lives saved. Because Claire died fighting. Because Owen spent 8 years searching. Because families refused to let 350 deaths be forgotten. That was legacy. Real, measurable legacy. Stratton and Marks were dead. Gaines would die in prison. Oceanic Ventures was destroyed. Ships were safer. Lives were saved. The Aurora Dream's victims had won. Owen pulled out his phone, sent a text to Emma. Marks died. Prosecutor says the Aurora Dream Act saved over 2,000 lives. Mom's death mattered. We made sure it mattered. Emma replied immediately. She'd be proud of us. Owen looked around his empty apartment. Boxes still unpacked. Life still in transition. But for the first time since March 2011, he wasn't drowning in grief and rage. He was just living, carrying Claire's memory without being crushed by it. We did it, Claire, he said to the empty room. Justice is done. Laws changed. Lives saved. Emma's building her life. Your legacy lives on. The apartment was silent. Owen turned on the TV, made dinner, lived through another ordinary evening. Claire was gone. The search was over. Justice was served. And finally, after 13 years of grief and rage and obsession, Owen could breathe. That was enough. It had to be enough. And for the first time, it actually was.